Hey folks, and welcome back to Fireside Farms. For those of you new here, my name is Megan and I live on a 1.5 acre homestead in southwest New Mexico in the high desert. Today we are going to do a full garden tour of my vegetable garden in the early summer, and it is poppin'. But first I have a brief message because the video actually occurred yesterday and I'm here on the front end redoing some of my video. Remember how I had an audio problem in my last video with my new lavalier mic? Well, I tried to use it again. I recorded like 10 minutes worth of my garden tour yesterday, went to edit it yesterday afternoon, and like half of the footage had no sound, like my mic muted or something. I have no idea what's going on. And the disappointing part was I even checked it before I started recording. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. How is it like when I talk to you? There are so many fucking mosquitoes out here. Ugh. Regardless, I am here to do my introduction again. And with the footage that I was able to recover, we will just pop right in to talking about the first garden bed on the southeast corner of the garden, which is where I start all my garden tours. Typically, I will start at the southeast corner, work north, and then go down each row like that. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video, in the upcoming footage, and enjoy, guys. Let me start off by showing you what I just saw this morning, which is not very good. But that is a gopher hole. Looks like he was digging in there too. We do have a gopher problem here because I live so close to the river levee right over yonder. They usually don't come in the garden. I did have a small problem with one last year, which I remedied. But unfortunately, these two beds, I did not put any fencing under them when I built them to prevent gophers from getting in there because I ran out of fencing. This first garden bed here is largely peppers. It was meant to be sort of a smorgasbord bed of leftover plants that I had after I planted everything out. But I ended up having some pretty poor germination on my pepper plants, so I ended up having to buy a few seedlings, which is not my favorite thing to do because they're expensive. And getting just a bunch of Bonnie plants from my local big box store. I have poblano peppers in here, ancho, serrano, and then a couple of my own seedlings I started. So I have a padron pepper, a pimienta padron, and a hatch red chili pepper here. And then towards the end of the bed, I have a Genovese basil, a calendula, and the trellis begins, which has a ton of different types of beans on them. Unfortunately, for the duration of this video, unless I tell you otherwise, I won't be able to give you the varieties of the beans on any of my trellises. For two reasons. One reason is I used seeds from goingtoseed.org this year. If you guys are interested in landrace gardening, please check out that website. But essentially they provide you with a type of plant, like a squash maxima or a common bean variety. They're not varieties that you can name. It's seeds that people have saved and donated to this organization. So they likely don't have names. They might be hybrids. And secondly, I kept throwing beans in for probably a month, just week after week, throwing random bean seeds in all of my trellises because I have to. I have to overseed my trellises or anything that I'm going to direct sow because of the roly-poly and cutworm problem I have. It makes direct seeding really difficult, and a lot of times my seedlings either don't come up or they get eaten right when they emerge from the ground. So I am constantly just throwing seeds and seeds in week after week during the spring season to try and get something to germinate and grow and survive. So until a lot of these beans start producing, I'm not going to know what they are at all. I do know this guy though. This guy here is an Armenian cucumber plant, which I also have on the other side of the trellis. And the Armenian cucumber loves growing in the desert. At least it loves the heat. It would probably prefer a little bit more humidity, but it performs very, very, very well here on my property for the last couple years. And I will always grow the Armenian cucumber because it's the only form of cucumber I can manage to grow in the desert. Technically, it's not a cucumber. The Armenian cucumber is a melon, but if picked young, tastes and behaves exactly like a cucumber. Unfortunately, in my really, really hot and dry environment, cucumbers don't grow quickly enough in the spring to get established and start producing before our really hot spring temperatures come along. And what few cucumbers do manage to grow, like this thunder cucumber variety from Johnny Seeds, they either don't produce, they peter out, or they do produce very small cucumbers that are extremely bitter. And I've always told you guys, if I have seeds for something, I'll grow it. I have tons of leftover seed packets from previous years of plants that I decided I don't want to try here anymore because they don't work. But if I've got the seeds, I'm going to plant them. So I do have a few cucumber plants, which I just showed you over there. But I haven't gotten any cucumbers this year, and I don't think I will. Right now, they're just holding in the soil, providing some beneficial microbes. And that's about it. Next to this ginormous mass of Armenian cucumbers, the rest of this bed is largely California Black Eye No. 5 cowpeas. These are a great variety of black-eyed pea that's more of a bush type variety, but they will send out small vines and runners here and there. But I do grow this every year. I like saving the dried beans from them. Although the green beans are just as good. And I'll probably be harvesting a lot of these for green beans right out of the gate, just because I'm not getting a lot of production on my other beans just yet. Got this gorgeous dill plant. And right here is a fig leaf gourd, which is a variety I've never grown before, but this was a seed from goingtoseed.org, and it looks pretty good and healthy. It's taking the full brunt of the sun quite well, but it has not produced any flowers yet. So I'm not sure if that's related to the heat or if it's just a longer time to maturity for this gourd. Moving on to my first tomato bed, I have about, I think I still have 8 tomatoes. I haven't torn any out. But I have 8 varieties of tomatoes in this bed. The various varieties I have in here are going to be Thorburns Terracotta, German Pink, 2 going to seed varieties of tomatoes, which technically have no name, an Isis Candy Cherry, and a Estiva, and 2 giant crimson tomato plants, the giant crimson from M.I. Gardner, but one of those giant crimsons is from my own saved seed from last year. For both of my tomato beds, I tend to run the trellis down the middle of the bed and plant 4 tomatoes on each side, and that leaves me the sides of the bed to add in other plants such as basil or peppers or small things that I need to find space for in the garden. It's kind of a messy jungle over here, and it's going to be hard to differentiate plants on camera, but down this side of the bed, I've got several plants that I threw in here, as well as some perennials that have been here for a while. This yarrow has been here for years. I've talked extensively about the benefits of yarrow as a medicinal herb. I have a separate video I'll link down below. Really cool herb. I also have calendula here, which is another medicinal herb I use regularly. Got some Amsterdam celery, which is a cut and come again style celery. This was my first year trying it. Technically, it's at the end of its life cycle. It's going to seed, but I did grow it over the winter. And it's a game changer for me. I've never been able to grow celery because celery requires, you know, wetter conditions, cooler temperatures, neither of which we have here in the desert at the same time. But this cut and come again variety, although the celery stalks are smaller, you won't be eating them with peanut butter, it's really good as a seasoning celery. It tastes just like celery, that's just little tiny sticks. Very beneficial. I highly recommend that if you've had trouble growing celery in the past, to give this cut and come again variety a try. It's called, the one I got was Amsterdam celery. I know there are several varieties, but you can find it at Baker Creek Seeds. Down this row further, I've got some Genovese basil at the end, as well as 2 leeks that have gone to flower. They look beautiful. I love leek and onion flowers. But I'm hoping to save some seeds from these guys for last year's leeks. And I have not harvested any tomatoes yet, except for a few Isis Candy Cherry tomatoes. But This going to seed variety right here is starting to ripen. Of course, it doesn't have a name. I don't know the exact variety, but it looks like it's going to be sort of a brownish color, maybe like Thorburns terracotta. And it looks healthy. I mean, I've got several tomatoes coming to fruition on here, so this might be my first actual slicer tomato that I get to eat from this year, which will be very cool. And on this trellis and the other side, I can tell you that these bean varieties are runner beans, just because of the way that they look. But as for a specific variety, I'm not certain. As well as these beans down here, I planted late. I don't have a variety for them. They could be anything. So we'll see as they come up what they're gonna be. This garden bed, similar to the first bed I showed you guys, is just full of peppers. I grow a ton of peppers here in New Mexico. It's kind of a staple food for the culture. None of these, I don't think any of these peppers are spicy. As I said before, I had really poor germination on a lot of my peppers this year, and most of the poor germination came from my favorite spicy peppers. So I know in here I have 2 canary yellow bell peppers. I'm not a huge fan of growing bell peppers, but like I said before, if I have the seeds, I'll plant them. I have several banana peppers, which I prefer to use as a sweet pepper, as opposed to a bell pepper because they just grow faster. I can get a banana pepper, 5 banana peppers the first month, and I don't even have a canary bell pepper fertilized and growing yet. So I do prefer banana peppers as my sweet pepper. I also have several green and red hatch chilies, which are coming along nicely. And if I'm being honest, they're the best producers in my garden right now. I've just got tons of green peppers. Oh, and it looks like I need to harvest shishitos today. So we're back at the south end, my first 4x4 bed. Guess what? It's peppers. Now these plants are way smaller than my other plants because these were seeds I started later after I had such terrible germination on my first round of seedlings. I planted a ton more peppers. A lot of these are going to be audible peppers. I've also got a jalapeno right here and my one holy basil plant in my entire garden. I am taking really good care of this guy because I'm hoping he gets big enough that I can harvest holy basil for the winter. I'm not worried about the size of these peppers. They're small, but they love the heat. They're going to do just fine, and they will be producing before winter. We have a really long growing season here. Now, if I had started peppers from seed right now, mid-June, I could probably get a pepper harvest. Yeah. I could probably get a pepper harvest before winter if I started seeds right now. It'd be close though, and I wouldn't get very much off the plant. But these guys, they'll be fine. I'm gonna get plenty of peppers once these guys grow up. Here's yet another bean trellis, guys, that I have no idea what is in here. Although if I'm being honest, I believe these will look a lot like asparagus beans or Chinese noodle beans. I know I threw a lot of extra Chinese noodle bean seeds in my garden beds because I absolutely love it as a green bean. On this opposite end, I have more beans and then one random Armenian cucumber plant that I'm trying to get to trellis up here. But with how big Armenian cucumbers grow, I think this one plant is just going to end up overtaking the entire bed. We'll have to see. And this 4x4 bed, you guessed it, peppers. These smaller plants are also from late started varieties. I've got a Thai hot pepper in here. Sriracha, I'm pretty excited about this pepper. This was sriracha pepper, and I love sriracha. So I'm hoping I can ferment my own sriracha peppers and make my own sriracha sauce. I've got some more chili. They are bowl padron peppers and a green chili. I haven't really been consistently harvesting food from the garden. Definitely not peppers. I've picked a couple of hot padrones, a couple of banana peppers, just to use in eggs and such. But nothing is really producing to the point of making a video of a garden harvest. I mean, if I made a video and we harvested one pepper and some basil, then that would be it. But I have a feeling that the garden is really gonna start throwing out a bunch of food right when we go on vacation to Missouri. And I'm gonna miss it. Now look at the sunflower that volunteered in the bed this year. I can only assume it is the common Mexican sunflower that I have all over my in-ground garden, but it's gorgeous. It's one of the biggest sunflowers I have. And it's not really in the way. It came up in this pepper bed first, so when I planted out the bed, I was able to give these peppers space according to the sunflower. If the sunflower had been in the way of my plants, I would have taken it out, but it's not doing any harm there, and it's gorgeous, so I'm gonna leave it. Oh. So back in this first bed, if you remember, this is where I had all of my onions that we harvested just like 3 weeks ago. And I had really wanted to get the onions out of the garden so that I could replant with okra, which I did, but I had some leftover space because I don't need a whole lot of okra. Maybe I put it in some stir fries once in a while. I definitely preserved it for frying over the winter, which we ate a few times. But I don't need a whole bed of okra plants. That's just a lot. So I did half of the bed with Clemson spineless okra and half of it with this corn variety, which I can't tell you the name of. So this is saved seed from my mom's house. She had a ton of dried corn. I just took a couple cobs and then planted those seeds. And it's coming up beautifully. It looks really, really healthy. And I believe, I'm pretty certain that it's either a flint corn or a dent corn. And my mom had purchased the seeds from Native Seed Search. So it's a desert dwelling native. And I tried to get online. She doesn't remember which one she bought. I tried to get online. It's like the cob itself has kernels that are shades of blue and white and maybe like a creamish. But I don't know what variety it is. So I do know it'll be a dried corn variety, so we won't be eating this corn here in this bed for fresh eating. It's definitely gonna be dried. I don't have a name for you guys. I'm sorry. I'm really bad at this. Here on this trellis, you guessed it, beans I don't know the name of. But here we got some nasturtium. This flower just opened yesterday. It's the first nasturtium flower of the year. And over here is a bed of all new plants for me. These are all tomatillos. So I can show you, look at that little guy. They're so squishy and fun. And eggplant. Such a beautiful purple color. Now the tomatillo variety is Rio Grande Verde, I believe. And I think I got it from Baker Creek. And the eggplant, which I also got from Baker Creek, is Ping Tung eggplant. I've never grown either of these. I have eaten tomatillos in salsa. It's a very common ingredient in the food here. And I've also eaten eggplant in the form of baba ganoush. But I've told you guys before, I've never grown eggplant or like really bought it and prepared it. So I'm excited to try something new this year. I hope I like it because I would love to have more variety in my diet. Different plants to grow. It's just fun. But if I end up not liking it and we don't eat any eggplant, I won't grow it again. I hope that's not the case though. As for these tomatillos, I am super stoked about their productivity. They grew so fast. I believe they were the fastest growing plant in my garden once everything was put in. It's crazy. They're doing great. And I have not harvested any yet. I want to wait until these husks dry out before I start harvesting tomatillos. But it's doing so well, guys. This whole bed is just new to me, new plants. And I couldn't be happier with how it's turning out. Sometimes, you know, you try something new and it doesn't do really well, but this is doing great. Obviously, I've got more beans over here that I don't have names for, but I also have another Amsterdam celery plant. which is also going to flower. But this one's a lot larger than the other one. Grab you a piece here. Ooh, that's a big stem. So sometimes you can get a large celery stem off of this Amsterdam celery, but most of the time they're smaller little stalks like this guy. Regardless, this isn't large enough to, you know, use as a raisin boat with peanut butter or anything. But not being able to grow celery here for years just makes me really happy that I can grow anything. I don't eat a whole lot of celery raw anyways. I don't like it in salads. I mainly use celery as a seasoning, so I'll use it in soups and stews, or make a mirepoix, a classic American mirepoix with celery, carrots, and onion. But that's really all I use celery for. So this cut and come again, even though the stalks are small, it's perfect because all I'm going to be using it for is a seasoning, so it's going to get chopped up anyways. Alright, we're moving on to the second tomato bed, which has a ton of tomatoes. Look at these. Look at this giant cluster. It's gorgeous. More up here, more up here. And this variety is, oh, that's not it, the Estiva. The Estiva tomato is a variety that I first tried last year. It's an F1 hybrid from Johnny Seeds, meant to be more heat tolerant, bred to be more heat tolerant. It performed super well for me last year. I didn't buy a second packet, but I did use seeds from last year, and that's what this guy is. And he's doing great. That's the most tomatoes of any of the plants that I have in my garden. This Estiva has the most fruit set out of all of them by like a lot. I've also got a ton of fruit set on this Roma variety. They're a little bit smaller. It's almost like they're like a tiny little cherry Roma variety. I will put the actual variety name on the screen because it's escaping me right now. But that's got a pretty good amount of fruit set as well. Just don't have any ripening quite yet. Down at the end here, I have another little truffula tree that went to seed. And some ginger I planted, which looks worse for wear. It just doesn't look very pretty. But I do have new shoots coming up, which is making me hopeful that this guy is actually going to produce me some ginger. Ginger is super easy to grow, guys. Just go to your local store. I went to Sprouts, buy a box of organic ginger or turmeric. You can do both of this, like ginger and turmeric. Buy you a box, put in some dirt, water it, keep it in a warm place for several weeks. It'll start to sprout. And then you just put that thing in the ground and it'll just multiply its root for you over the course of the growing season. It's really, really easy to grow. I highly recommend it. Even if you don't use a lot of ginger, it's just a fun project to try. This side, I mean, this whole area is just a hot mess. But I've got this Estiva branching off over here. It's getting all over the calendula. It's just absolute chaos in my garden right now. Especially in the tomato beds, which I did on purpose this year. So I tried a new thing where I didn't do any pruning, which is not unheard of here in the desert. You'll find a lot of desert gardeners don't prune their tomato plants at all. The major reason for pruning tomato plants is if you live in a hot and humid climate. A lot of the leaves massing together on the stem can cause fungal diseases, and tomatoes are really, really sensitive little babies, so you have to take care of them. But here in the desert, we don't have any humidity problems. I haven't even gotten rain at my house since last year, so we don't have humidity problems. That makes leaving the foliage on a lot easier. And it also helps in the desert to have a bushier, kind of wild tomato, because their leaves will shade, like it'll shade each other out. A lot of foliage on your tomato plant will just cut down on the heat and the brunt of the sun on your tomato plant. So this year I didn't do any pruning, and you can tell, like there's branches going out in all directions in these beds, which is fine. It's kind of annoying and in the way, but I want to see how it works this year. I want to see if I'm successful with it. I'm just trying new things every year, making small incremental changes to the way that I garden so that I can have the most productive garden with the least amount of input in this really rough climate. So unfortunately that means your tomato plants looking like this, all the way over here, all over everything else. Just a complete hot mess all over this bed. I'm gonna show you guys this too. I've got chamomile starting to flower. I was a little worried I wouldn't get any chamomile this year, but I have been picking a ton. It smells so good too. And now onto the other hot mess of the garden, which is my in-ground squash patch. And you're gonna see a stark difference between the plants here and that. And I'm gonna tell you why right now. These massive plants right here, there's really 3 major ones. And that's going to be, they're all going to be, no, I'm wrong. They're not all going to seed varieties. The biggest one, the one that's taking up all this space, is a going to seed variety. It's a Maxima variety of squash. This large round one right here is also a going to seed variety. It's a summer squash variety, so a Cucurbita pepo. And then somewhere in the middle, I have a variety of squash called Mayo Kama, or Mayo Blusher. Both of those were successful in my garden, and both of those are varieties from Native Seed Search. What I did this year, it was a concerted effort this year to try and find varieties that I didn't have to work at to get to live. So I specifically went to Native Seed Search, which is a seed company based in Arizona that you know, perpetuates native desert-born seeds, and I got squash varieties from that company. And then I also got landrace varieties from goingtoseed.org and just threw them in, see what would work. And not surprisingly, duh, those plants are doing better than the tromboncino squash or the delicata squash that I planted over here on this side, which are just plants that do better in other regions of the US and were not made for my high elevation desert climate. And although I love shopping around at seed companies like Johnny Seeds and Baker Creek and all these cool heirloom seed stores, I really love having food more. And these plants are doing so well. It's crazy how amazing these look. This Maxima variety is all the way to my cucumbers over there, extending out onto the bed almost to my perimeter fence. And I don't know, because it is a going to seed variety, what it's going to look like. But here's one of the fruits. If anyone recognizes that squash from a variety they've grown, please let me know in the comments. It would be interesting to compare. This one is a completely separate plant. So see, yeah, this is the Mayo Blusher from Native Seeds. And this guy is going through my Maxima out to the bed. And this summer squash has been pretty productive. It's a green variety. Oh, I'm letting that guy get a little big. I need to get him. And it's not that the other ones are necessarily doing terrible. I have 2 summer squash varieties right here. I lost the tags, so I'm not really sure what they are. But they're doing okay. They're just growing much slower. They look a lot more pale. Like, these look terrible. They're almost yellow. It's barely even a green color. And these are tromboncino squashes. I mean, they're just dying back. And I had tromboncino squash that did really well for me last year, but it was in a garden bed. So it had nice, perfectly fluffed, rich soil. It wasn't in-ground here in this poor quality, sandy soil, in-ground bed. But these are thriving. And I want to grow my squash in this bed. I want this to be just 4 squash every year, so I just have rambling vines of squash everywhere and I can harvest a bunch. So although the tromboncino did good in my raised beds, it obviously likes higher quality soil because it's doing poorly in here now, which stinks. I really like the tromboncino. But I've also found 2 varieties, even though they don't have names, of the going to seed varieties that do really well. So I'm doing my best to save seeds from both of the summer squash and that maxima back there this year. And it's gonna be awesome if I save seeds from these guys and then plant this whole area out next year. Imagine how many vines there are gonna be. It's gonna be nuts. And I've got a smattering of other stuff in here. Here's my catnip, which I use medicinally. This is a perennial. This comes back every year. So you can see this dead part. This is where I just harvested a bunch and took inside to dehydrate. I've also got my obligatory common sunflowers. This guy's getting tall. He's gonna reach the top. These guys are a little shorter, probably because they're in the middle of the walkway, so they don't get any direct water. As you can see, my drip lines here, they came up here, but they still came up just fine. This is a desert native. And these flowers do super well here. I never seed them. They reseed themselves every year. It's kind of crazy walking through my in-ground garden and knowing that I put either a plant or a seed at every foot interval in this space. And I only have a few select plants that actually made it through. And that's what landrace gardening is all about. You gotta find whatever works best in your area with the minimal amount of inputs. Unfortunately, that's a lot of dead plants and sacrifice. Here's my little mint bed. Harvesting pretty regularly. It doesn't love the heat. It kind of slows down in the summer and then it'll kick back up again in the fall. So I take it easy on the harvesting in the middle of the summer. So here we are at the most recently built beds in my garden. I built both of these this spring, filled them with soil, and planted them out. And as you can see, they look terrible. But I saved them for last because I wanted to discuss something with you about these beds and the soil in them, and reference them to 2 YouTube videos I saw this last week. So these 2 videos were put out, one by Jessica Sowards at Roots and Refuge Farm and one by Kevin Espiritu at Epic Gardening. And I'm sure if anyone watches my channels, they absolutely watch those 2 channels. Both of those creators are pioneers in gardening and homesteading YouTube. But both of them had very similar subjects they wanted to talk about in these 2 videos that I watched. So the first one, Roots and Refuge's video, Jessica was discussing how her greens, oh goodness, I saw this like a couple days ago, how her green stalks had some new soil in them and those tomatoes were doing poorly, and then the other green stalks that had old soil and she had just amended with compost and fertilizer were doing leagues better than the brand new soil. She was talking about how soil companies nowadays, because of the high volume they're required to put out, because of the uptick in gardening, they're just putting out crappier soil. And I completely agree. I have been talking about that for years, about the soil that I use in my beds and how my first season with these garden beds is basically a wash. All of my plants do poorly if they don't outright die. And so I just consider it a wash, but it's affordable. It's the way that I can afford to fill, you know, an 8x4 bed with bags of soil, which is really expensive. And then I just saw a video from Epic Gardening where him and Jox did a bagged soil test over the course of months with some peppers. Lo and behold, the Kellogg's brand of soil that I get from Home Depot that I use to fill my beds every year was on this list, and it was at the very bottom of their performance review. Like, that pepper plant looked about like most of the plants look in my garden the first year that I have these beds. And if you want, you can go back and reference garden tour videos. Every year I create new beds in my garden. I just add to my garden little by little. And every year I use that Kellogg soil from Home Depot because it's only 10 bucks a bag. If I were to use my favorite soil, which is the Fox Farm Ocean Forest, It's $30 a bag for half of the cubic feet. So I get 3 cubic feet when I buy the Kellogg's bags, and I get 1.5 for twice the price when I buy Fox Farm. It's a good quality soil, and I absolutely use it to start my seedlings for that reason, but I cannot fill a garden bed with that. Man, it would be like $600 a garden bed. It's so expensive. But yeah, every year when I fill my beds with that Kellogg soil, my plants look crappy, they look nutrient deficient, very, very pale green or yellow even. Sometimes they just outright die. And it was just very validating to see Epic Gardening do that experiment with the soil that I actually use. And then to see Jessica Sowards having the same issue and talking about it and educating people about it. So I just wanted to reiterate that I completely agree with both of them, and I have years of proof of that happening because I use that soil every year when I build a new garden bed. And these 2 beds this year, although some of this corn looks pretty decent, a lot of it died and I had to reseed, and a lot of it's just failing to thrive right now. And in fact, these corns are probably the only thing that I maybe might get a harvest out of in both of these 2 brand new beds I have this year. I don't think it's any sort of toxicity in the soil. I don't see any signs of glyphosate poisoning or any other sort of herbicide damage from these plants. It's just always just a failure to thrive. They get put in the soil and then they just wither. Like the soil is sucking the life out of them, which technically may well be happening. The soil that I get, which is the raised bed garden soil from Kellogg's, it's extremely woody whenever I pull it out of the bag. Not woody to the point of it being wood chips. I obviously wouldn't use it if it was that bad. But it's apparently woody enough to still be decomposing and leaching nitrogen from the soil during its decomposition process. The soil is too hot idea also makes sense because these beds are perfectly fine after about 6 months. 6 months of watering them, sticking plants in them helps to, activate the microbiome in the soil, break down those parts that need to be broken down further. And then, by the end of 6 months or the next year, I have really amazing garden beds because I've added my own amendments. I've kept plants growing in there. And I've watered, so the soil is breaking down. There are worms. But it does take time to get there. As of right now, I don't know if I'm going to be doing a different method. Because frankly, my garden's pretty big. I have enough space. I don't need to buy perfect soil so that I have, a garden bed ready to go next year that I will actually need to grow food in. I have tons of beds that are just fine. And although it's really sucky to, build a garden bed and then fill it with soil and then have all your plants die. It sounds really bad. It's happened to me a lot. It happens to me every year, so I'm kind of used to it. And because I'm used to it, I think I'm okay with it. I'm super frugal. So to me, it's worth the money saved than trying to source extremely good soil to put in these beds. And might I add, in the Epic Gardening experiment, there were a lot of good bagged soil companies that performed poorly on the test. So you never really know what you're gonna get. You're kind of at the whim of the company when you're ordering soil, and I order a lot. Like, I'm putting tens of bags in this garden because I amend all of my garden beds. So I could make a run or a stab at a different company and get the same result. So for now, it's more like the devil you know. Like, I know what I'm gonna get with the Kellogg's brand, unfortunately. But at least it's predictable. It's so odd. It's like there's one good spot of soil in this whole bed, and this corn got it. I mean, a few around here are doing okay, these few in the back, but there's also a ton that just didn't make it. I mean, technically it's still alive, but this is never gonna produce me a corn cob. Yeah, so I'd seen both of those videos this week, and I was like, I have to talk about my garden because I use that exact soil and have that exact same problem, which is just really validating. It's nice. It's not nice to hear that other people have the same problems as you. That sounds terrible. I'm sorry for everyone who has soil problems, but it's good to know that I'm not the only one, and that all of my guesses, you know, about why my plants do poorly that first year are correct. And it's just good to, you know, feel right sometimes. You know, most people just want to know why. They can handle the news, even if it's really bad news. They just want to know why. So now I know why. But I am excited to see, I think Jess said she is going to send her soil off to be tested. And we don't use the same bagged soil, but it will be interesting to see what comes back in her results. Because I've never gotten my soil tested, and I'm really don't feel like it either. I'm okay with just waiting 6 months to a year for my brand new garden bed to be usable. But that is it for my early summer garden tour, guys. The sun is out, which means it's hot, and I'm already sweating. So I'm gonna finish up my chores and get inside. If you have any questions about any of the plants that I mentioned, please ask them down below, and I will do my best to answer them. And I'll catch you on the next one.